All right. In this video, we want to take a closer look at activities. So I will go to the activities and it'll load the currently defined activities. And so we see there's a create communication. We're seeing the first digits of the ID for that resource. And it tells us the path. So the key to activities is that they're actually API calls. And so the server side has a set of endpoints that implement various functions. And so the core of an activity is a API path and then the properties for that endpoint. And you can see here we have various. We can create a communication or create an email. The response path activity is in video 2. And we can create a questionnaire, assign the questionnaire. So all of these are using the API endpoints in the server side. So what happens when we create an activity? So here I'm going to add a new activity and say a simple activity would be send an email. So I'm going to use that endpoint, and what I want to, let's call this email 11. And it's a regular task. If it was a response path, it is telling me that it's going to add an accepted and a rejected output for the response path, but most activities are not response path activities. So here I know that this endpoint requires to and subject and body. So I'm going to make a to property and a subject property and a body property. And of course, properties can come in different types. And most interesting is that the properties are defined at different times. So in this case, we're going to define the property at template creation, which is now. So for to, I'll just put in an email address. And then for subject, I also want that defined now. So we're going to call this test email 11. And then we have the body. So that's the words that go in the email. And for this, I want this also to be at creation time, which is now. So we say hello world. And this activity definition editor allows us to see what the activity looks like in the FHIR resource. So this is really important for people that develop FHIR, is to know what the resource looks like. So what we have is the resource type and then an ID and a name and a title. So those are the properties that are defined here. And then we have to represent these properties and their types and their paths and things. So we're going to use the dynamic value field, which is an array in the activity definition. And so here you're going to see first we have the API path. And it's saying that the API path is to this API, which is what we set here. So it's going to go to create. And then the variables or the properties themselves have a number of dynamic variable elements. So we need to know the name. In this case, it's to, and the type is a string, and it's defined now at template creation, and it has a value. So you'll see a set of 5 of these dynamic value elements in order to define each of the properties. So for instance, we have subject, and it is of type string, and it's defined at template creation, and it also has a value test email 11. And likewise, the body is represented that way. So this is how activities are represented, and then they can be saved and added to this activities list. So that gives the developer a lot of flexibility in terms of what activities can be executed by the FHIR engine, because there's really no limit. As long as you have an API endpoint on your server side, you can create whatever activity you can imagine.